All right, so if you're an INFJ, introverted, intuitive, feeling, and judging, you probably know exactly what I'm about to talk about. It's that weird, unsettling feeling that something's just off. It's a very specific kind of anxiety, right? And in this explainer, we're going to dig into where that feeling comes from and, way more importantly, how you can actually find your way to some real inner peace.
I mean, have you ever felt that feeling of impending doom? It can be quiet, almost like a background hum, or sometimes it's really loud. It's this sense of dread that just hangs over you, making you nervous about what's coming next, even when you have no logical reason to be.
So, if you're sitting there nodding along, you are definitely not alone. For INFJs, this isn't some random thing that happens once in a while. No, it's a super common challenge, and it's actually baked into the very traits that make you who you are.
Okay, so before we can figure out how to deal with this feeling, we got to understand why it happens in the first place. Let's pull back the curtain and look at the core parts of the INFJ mind that literally create a perfect recipe for anxiety.
First on the list is your intuitive nature. Think of it like this. You have this incredibly powerful radar that's always on, picking up on the tiniest details and subtleties that most people miss. Now that's a superpower for seeing patterns in what could happen, but it's also a curse, because your mind can just as easily lock on to all the potential negative outcomes and threats, way before they're even a remote possibility.
And then there's your empathetic nature. You're not just sympathetic, you're like an emotional sponge. You literally absorb what other people are feeling. You know the drill. Your friend is freaking out about a deadline, and next thing you know, you're the one with a knot in your stomach. You end up carrying around someone else's stress and anxiety, and you might not even realize it's not yours to begin with.
And the third ingredient in this recipe? Oh yeah, it's perfectionism. INFJs tend to be idealists, which sounds nice, but it means you set the bar incredibly high, not just for yourself, but for everyone else too. And while that can push you to do great things, it also creates this constant, humming fear of failure. That little voice worrying that things won't be perfect is a huge trigger for that feeling that something's about to go wrong.
So, let's put it all together. You take that super-attuned intuition, you mix in that emotion-absorbing empathy, you add a heavy dose of high-stakes perfectionism, and then you stir it all up with a natural tendency to think a lot. What do you get? A potent cocktail for anxiety. Your mind is always on, scanning, feeling, analyzing, and striving. It's exhausting, and it leads you right to that doorstep of impending doom.
Okay, so we get the why now, but what do you actually do when that feeling hits? Let's get practical. This next part is all about your immediate toolkit, things you can do right in the moment to get some relief.
All right, here are 3 powerful steps you can take to get your thinking back on track. First up, mindfulness. I know, you hear it all the time, but it works. Just ground yourself. What are 5 things you can see, 4 you can touch? Get out of your head and into the present moment. Second, you've got to challenge those negative thoughts. Be a detective. Ask yourself, wait a second, is this fear based on facts, or is my brain just writing a disaster movie script? And number 3, reach out. Talk to someone you trust. Seriously, sometimes just saying the fear out loud is enough to shrink it down to size.
Now look, these tools are amazing. They're like your emotional first aid kit, and they are absolutely essential for managing that anxiety when it flares up. But, and this is a big but, they're about managing the symptoms. To really, truly solve this for the long run, we have to go deeper. We need to get to the root of the problem.
And that brings us to the real core of this whole thing, the foundational solution. And it all comes down to one big idea: building self-sufficiency, especially when it comes to how you feel about yourself and where you get your sense of love and worth. Just listen to this quote, because it's everything. The truth is, everything you love is based on how you love yourself. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. Everything. The way you love your friends, your family, your work, it all starts from the inside. It's a mirror of the relationship you have with yourself. This is the bedrock of what we're talking about. So what do we even mean by self-sufficiency and love? It means you learn to be your own source. You cultivate so much love, acceptance, and validation from within that you're not constantly looking for it from other people. It's about filling your own cup so you can interact with the world from a place of fullness and strength, not from a place of neediness.
Here's a great way to think about it. It's like you're building an internal template for your life, a blueprint. And this blueprint isn't based on what your parents want or what society expects. It's based on your authentic core values. It's you defining for yourself what a good and fulfilling life actually looks and feels like.
Okay, so you've got this awesome internal template. Now what? How does that actually help you navigate your day-to-day life and stop feeling so anxious all the time? Well, this is where your template transforms into your own personal compass.
This is the big mindset shift right here. On one side, you have the old way, constantly looking outside yourself for approval, for external validation. That's a recipe for confusion and anxiety. On the other side, you have the new way, looking for internal resonance. That just means you're checking in with yourself and asking, does this feel right for me? When you start doing that, when you trust your own inner compass, that's where true strength comes from.
So how does this compass actually work in the real world? It's actually pretty simple. Once you're crystal clear on who you are and what you stand for, everything else just sorts itself out. People, jobs, situations, they'll either feel right, they'll resonate with you, or they'll feel off, creating dissonance. It's not about judging what's bad or getting upset. It's just about noticing and then naturally moving toward what feels resonant. That becomes your North Star for basically every decision in your life.
So, where does all this lead? What's the final destination of this whole journey? Well, I can tell you, it's way bigger than just feeling less anxious. We're talking about a completely new way of living.
And here's the absolute key takeaway. The goal here isn't to get really good at managing your anxiety for the rest of your life. No, the goal is to build a life that's so authentic, so aligned with who you really are, that anxiety just doesn't have a place to grow anymore. You shift from just coping and surviving to actually living a life that feels like it's yours, truly and deeply yours. All right, so let's do a super quick recap of the entire journey. First, you have to understand your unique INFJ traits that create the anxiety. Then, you use those practical tools to handle the feelings when they pop up. But the real work, the deep work, is building that foundation of self-love and defining who you are. That becomes your internal compass, which you then use to find what resonates with you. And boom, you're living an authentic life on your own terms. And that leaves us with one last question. And this one is just for you to think about. If you could turn down the volume on all the expectations and all the noise from the outside world, and just listen to that inner compass, what would your authentic life really look like? Because that is the goal. And trust me, that journey is 100% worth taking.